Hi, I'm Tim Gordon, and welcome to The Story. So Maggie is taking some time off, much deserved time off for the holidays. So I'm your host tonight. But this is still the same show. Your questions, your comments drive our coverage, and we definitely want to hear from you. All the ways to contact us are at the bottom of your screen right now. You can email The Story at kgw.com or use the hashtag TheStoryKGW on Twitter. Let's get started with our big story. Now, by many accounts, this school year has seemed harder than last year, even with all the issues related to remote learning back then. Students and teachers tell us they're feeling overwhelmed from the fights, classroom disruptions, and heightened anxiety of in-person school. Christine Petewanich spoke with students to give them a chance to vent and tell us how things are going from their perspective. Some of them are young, and parents gave them permission to speak to us.
Hi. Okay, my name is Grace. I am a senior at McKay High School.
My name is Paul Quash. I'm a senior at North Salem High School.
And my name is Dara Elkana, and I'm a senior at South Salem High School.
All three of these students attend class in Salem Keizer Public Schools, and all three say this year is a challenge.
There is a lot of more disrespect going around to staff and teachers. There has been more violence and fights going on, and we've never had.
Kids are skipping class. Grace says she sees it when she helps out in the library.
There's tons of kids skipping. I mean, we're talking 30 to 50 kids skipping sometimes. And it's just wow, things have changed.
It's the same thing at North as well. This is a roller coaster where we have really high highs and then really low lows.
These students say everyone seems mentally exhausted.
You just notice the morale is really low in the school.
They say students are also dealing with bullying online.
Just taking pictures of people without their consent. And there might be bad comments about it.
In some cases, that bullying extends to teachers too. Dara says she, Paul, and Grace are all part of an anti-bullying group.
And I mentioned it to one of my teachers, and she's like, can teachers be a part of that? Because I'm getting bullied by students.
It's a whole mess, but we're still trying to figure it out, and we're still navigating.
In Vancouver, 9th grader Katie Pyatt has seen similar things.
I've definitely noticed the disrespect being there, because a lot of kids don't like wearing their masks and will keep them pulled down and then just ignore the teachers when they ask to pull them up. There have been a few fights as well.
Still, overall, she's happy school is back in person.
Because I get to see my friends a lot more, and it's nicer to see my family a little less after being stuck in the same house with them forever. Rude.
That's her brother, Colin, an 8-year-old in 3rd grade. He says he hasn't seen any fights at his school.
I like how it's actually in person instead of online, because I thought that was a lot harder to learn.
Outside of the Portland area, 10-year-old Caleb Duncan is also grateful to be back in person. This year, he's attending a charter school.
And I'm in 5th grade, and I go to Dallas Oregon School District.
He says he's been able to socialize more with other kids and even did a Christmas play.
It's way better. I mean, versus sitting at home all day in front of a screen, it's you can't even compare them, and they're so different.
His mom, Janica, has 4 other kids. 2 of them attend public school, one in middle and another in high school. They weren't available to speak to us, but Janica told us what they told her.
The middle school especially is really bad. Kids will just walk out of class. They're thankful to be in person, but it's not quite ideal yet.
Back at Salem Keizer, students are taking initiative and plan to hold what are being called student engagement cafes.
We get to meet with not just high schoolers, but middle school and elementary. So you get multiple perspectives.
We talk about anti-bullying, we talk about cyberbullying, we talk about mental health problems.
I think the whole process is just to give voice to students.
There's been a lot of change, but I know that change leads to growth.
Christine Petewanich, KGW News.
Well, we are almost at the end of the year, so we're taking a look back at some of the biggest stories that we've covered on this show. A huge one, of course, is the record shootings and homicides in Portland. Well, let's bring in KGW investigative producer Andrew Dorn. Andrew, we've been tracking these homicides in Portland this year. Just how bad has the situation gotten?
Well, Tim, I think it's safe to say what we've seen over the last year, and really over the last 18 months, is completely unprecedented. We know of at least 80 people who have been killed in the city of Portland just this year alone. And that's the highest number in modern history, worse than 1987 when 72 people were killed. And just to put that into perspective, in 2019, just 2 years ago, the city had 36 homicides. So we're more than double that. And in 2019, that was considered a really bad year. And of course, as we've seen, shootings have also picked up. We know about 80% of this year's homicide victims were killed by someone with a gun. We've had almost 1,200 shootings this year. Again, just 2 years ago, the city had less than 400.
Just astronomical climb. And you've been tracking the victims of these homicides as well, helping tell their stories. Why do you think that is so important for us to hear?
Well, I think it's important for a few reasons. Those numbers I just mentioned are just that. They're numbers. For people who've been paying attention, they know the data. But what it really doesn't tell us is really who these people were. And every single one of these victims has a story. Many were mothers and fathers. They were members of our community. I think of someone like Breonna White, who drove a bus for TriMet and leaves behind 2 kids. I think of Jacob Vasquez, who was shot and killed, while just hanging out at a bar after a long day at work. And, the other thing is, I think it's an important reminder that a lot of these families haven't received justice. About 60% of this year's homicides are still unsolved.
Yeah. Do we know why this is happening, Andrew? Why has 2021 been such a violent year in Portland?
And of course, that's really the question on everyone's mind right now. We talked to Portland police. We've heard a lot from them. They're short-staffed. They don't have the resources. Homicide detectives are completely overwhelmed. We've also talked to leaders in the community and members in the DA's office to try and make sense of this. And there's no simple solution. It's really a perfect storm right now, a combination of the coronavirus pandemic, coupled with the staffing challenges of the Portland Police Bureau. I think if you had to choose a month when things really took off, we're looking at July 2020. There was widespread civil unrest in the city, and a combination of all those things has just really created a really dangerous and deadly year in the city.
Yeah, for sure. Andrew, thanks for your work on this. We appreciate it. On our website, we have been running a list of every homicide victim in Portland this year and what we know about each of them. That's up on kgw.com right now. Okay, we are going to switch gears now and revisit an email we got earlier this week from Suzanne. Suzanne wrote, "I was on the hunt for at-home COVID tests and finally found some yesterday. Why are these still so hard to find and pretty cost prohibitive for many people? I spent close to $200 for 8 boxes of 2 tests each. It's no wonder many people don't or can't test." Well, it is true, tests are hard to find right now, especially because a lot of people are trying to take them right before the holidays. At-home tests can also be quite pricey. Well, here's some good news on that front. President Biden just announced that at-home tests will be available for free for every American starting next month. But they're not just going to show up in your mailbox. Let's have Ariane Datil with our Verify team explain.
President Joe Biden promised to supply free at-home testing kits for Americans.
So I'm announcing today the federal government will purchase 1/2 billion, that's not million, billion with a B, additional at-home rapid tests with delivery starting in January.
The president says these tests are part of a plan to help protect Americans and support hospitals this winter as the Omicron variant spreads and cases of COVID-19 rise. Now people are wondering if they need to do anything in order to receive one of these at-home tests. On Twitter, people are asking if you have to request a test from the government. So, is that true? Let's verify. Our sources include White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, the White House's fact sheet on its Omicron response plan, and the Food and Drug Administration. In a press conference, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said the test won't just show up in your mailbox.
We're not sending a test to every single home in the country.
Instead, the White House announced it will, quote, create a website where Americans can request an at-home test be delivered to their home for free, unquote. Psaki says the website will go up and tests will be available in January of 2022. As of November, there are 13 approved at-home rapid test kits, according to the FDA. So we can verify, yes, you will need to request a free at-home test from the government, but the website to do that isn't up yet. In the meantime, there are 20,000 testing locations across the country. Type COVID test near me in Google to find a testing location closest to you. With your Fast Fact, I'm Ariane Till.
And if you have any questions about tests or the new Omicron variant, send them to the story at kgw.com. Well, still ahead, if you're dreaming of a white Christmas, maybe you're in luck. It's possible. We'll look at the future forecast. We're also going to take a trip into the past, a snowy memory lane, when the story continues. All right, welcome back. Keep sending your questions and comments to the story at kgw.com or use the hashtag #TheStoryKGW on Twitter. So let's talk about something that I'm sure is on everyone's mind. Snow, right?
Yeah.
I know a lot of us are kind of hoping for a white Christmas. Well, at least those of us
That means that some of us might have
Subarus,
to work a little overtime.
Yeah, maybe you're not hoping for it. I don't know. We got Chris McGinnis here. You're a well-tuned meteorologist. You're all over this thing. What should we expect?
So the first question is, are we going to see a white Christmas? All right. I mean, if you're asking me that right now, I'm just going to say no.
No.
Not on the valley floor. It's just going to be too warm. Here's a real quick look at my weekend forecast. Saturday, Christmas Day, I've got mixed rain and snow with a snow level at 1,000 feet and lowering during the day. But we're probably in the mid-30s. We're likely to see some snowflakes in the air. Will it stick on the valley floor? I mean, I suppose it's possible somebody in a little grassy patch over there sees, you know, some little slush here and there. But in terms of like widespread sticking snow on the valley floor on Christmas Day, no, I don't think so. Saturday night and Sunday, the air mass gets a little colder, and therein lies a slightly better chance for some sticking snow in that time frame. So I wanted to show you Futurecast and show you why. Here's our computer model. There's a lot going on here, but the big thing that I'm showing you is as this storm system whirls ashore here, you see the arrows kind of circulating around it. The arrows point in the direction of the wind. The wind is generally onshore or even somewhat southerly across the Willamette Valley. So that's likely to keep our surface temperatures above freezing during the day on Christmas Day.
Okay.
The air mass cools enough Saturday night and Sunday that I think that we've got enough cooling to kind of overcome that. And so I think that's the first chance for widespread, slushy accumulation down to the valley floor. That would be, overnight Saturday into Sunday. And here's what I have for weekend snow levels. Friday night, 1,500 feet. Coastal passes are going to be snowy. Saturday, 1,000 feet and lowering.
Dropping.
And then Sunday, valley floor to 500 feet. I'm not even sure that we stay below freezing on Sunday. We may not, which means that we may see a little accumulation and then it melts.
Okay.
One thing I can tell you is that it's going to get a whole lot colder from there.
Yeah, oh my.
Yeah, oh my. So the next question, I think people start thinking about is
New Year's. How about like the following weekend?
Okay, so what typically happens is on the back edge of these cold outbreaks, it's usually about the time where we're like, oh my goodness, we missed out on all the snow, but now you're saying there's going to be a chance of snow. Here's Futurecast all week long, and the cold dome just gets colder and colder and colder across the Northwest. Look at that. Those purples and blues that you see on the map, indicative of temperatures that are in the teens below zero across northern Washington. And with the cold refrigerator door known as the Columbia Gorge open, that's going to allow some of that cold air to break in. And of course, the storm track usually follows right along that cold air boundary. So we will keep a very close eye on that. But I will say that New Year's Eve, there is a storm system that may try to work its way in and snap us out of that cold spell. And as that happens,
no doubt it's going to be cold enough, though. I mean, it's just sounding like it.
Yeah, I think next week we're looking at possible. I mean, mind you, Portland has not gotten below freezing yet this fall, winter. Right? Hasn't happened. Hillsborough has, Salem has, Vancouver has. At PDX, we have not. There's going to be a couple of days next week where I think we don't get above freezing for daytime highs.
Briefly, worst travel days.
I'd say, if you're traveling over the coastal passes, Friday night's going to be wintry. If you're traveling over the Cascade passes, the next couple of days are going to be pretty wintry. And then I think for the rest of us lowland, there's a reasonable chance for some sticking snow Sunday and Monday.
Okay.
Not a lot, but it doesn't take much.
No, it certainly doesn't. All right, Chris, thanks for all that. That's great information.
Are you sure about that?
I'm pretty sure I got it locked in.
Okay.
But we've got more to talk about. Who remembers the last time we had a bunch of snow in Portland for Christmas? We got a little bit in 2017, a few years ago.
That was just a little taste.
Just a taste. But 2008, we had a big blizzard. We had a huge strand of people for days. Let's take a look back at that in the KGW Vault.
Could not get out of the house.
I've been snowed in for 5 days, 5 or 6 days.
I've been stranded for 4 days.
But now a break in the weather. Last-minute shoppers are freed from snow prison.
We're out and we're getting all our presents like in half an hour.
Susan and Richard Harlan came with a plan in hand.
We're going to go to Ross's, we're going to go to Mac's store, we're going to go Best Buy, and then we're going to go to Winko's.
Good news for retailers hit by a slow economy and now the Arctic blast. Retailers are pulling out all the stops to make the most of Christmas sales.
There are going to be even larger discounts after Christmas. They don't want anything on their shelves.
At Cedar Hills Crossing, crossing the parking lot was a catastrophe for some. But it can't slow down the determined to do today what should have been done weeks ago, including grocery shopping.
We're having a tri-tip roast.
Joyce McNair is getting the rest of the fixins, including what she needs for her famous mac and cheese.
A heart attack on a plate. But it's good.
Where's my invitation?
You're always welcome.
Oh my, I was here, I remember that. It was a mess. It's great to hear the voice of Joe Smith from the past. All right, ready for another big election year? Well, the primaries for Oregon's next governor are really right around the corner. And right now, one of the big questions is Nicholas Kristof even eligible to run? Oregon election officials say they need some more evidence on that when the story continues. And welcome back to the story. Let's talk about the Oregon governor's race, shall we? Because the May primaries are actually closer than you think. In the new year, you'll probably start seeing those usual political ads and attack ads too. And that brings us to a story from OPB that we think is worth your time. The Oregon Secretary of State's office is asking Nicholas Kristof for more evidence that he meets the residency requirements to run for governor. You're probably familiar with the backstory here. Kristof, a former New York Times columnist, voted in New York in 2020, not Oregon, but his campaign argues that should not disqualify him because he owns property in Oregon, pays income taxes here, and considers Oregon home. Still, the Secretary of State's office is not convinced. They sent Kristof a letter this week saying, quote, "Our office has reviewed the published legal memo concerning your residency in Oregon, but the memo does not address the effect of that vote on your Oregon residency." We talked to KGW political analyst Len Bergstein about all this.
The viewers and the voters are going to very quickly get a real lesson about what it means to be a qualified candidate for governor, because there is a question about whether Nick Kristof qualifies to be governor according to the Constitution, and the statutes would say you got to be here for a certain period of time. You got to be a resident of Oregon. He makes the very strong case, and his lawyers and all of his supporters make the case that his intention is very clear. He wants to be an Oregonian, and he's been, and except for an electoral act, he voted in the New York race, and he was allowed to vote in whether or not he was a resident of New York. That's okay. That doesn't disqualify him. Now it becomes, somebody will say, you can't run. Wait a minute. You say you're a candidate, but you're not qualified. And this weekend, there were 3 former secretaries of state who wrote an op-ed in the Oregonian, the Sunday Oregonian, a very impressive act, by the way, quite effective to get those 3 to kind of all agree to the same op-ed to say, when you look at this question of are you qualified to run or eligible to run, the question about access is the most important thing that we ought to decide. We ought to err on the side of allowing access to the polls. Politically, what will happen is the folks who want to stop Kristof's campaign will challenge him in his campaign because they want to get him to talk about this for the next couple of weeks and months, rather than talking about the things he wants to talk about why he's the right person for Oregon at this particular time. So they're hoping as a tactic to get the voters to focus on that aspect and to force him to spend his time on that.
Okay, now we've heard from Kristof about this before. Here's what he told Laurel Porter in October when he was announcing his campaign.
Some may wonder if Oregon's home, why didn't you vote in Oregon in 2020?
I could have voted in Oregon. I could have voted in New York. If I'd been a more calculating politico, I would have. But at the end of the day, I could have done so in either place. And I think that's a distraction from these real crises that are afflicting people around the state.
And some of your opponents may take this and challenge it in court. I mean, how much of a distraction will it be when you want to talk about some of these other issues?
I'll have to leave it to them to decide. I mean, I think they'd probably rather talk about that than talk about the fact that we have 4th worst homelessness in the country, the 2nd worst unhoused population in the country, and so other folks may well raise it, but I am an Oregonian, period.
Okay, now get this. Kristof is one of more than 24 people who are running for governor in Oregon. The primaries are about 5 months away on May 17th, and the general election will be on November 8th, 2022. All right, keep sending your questions and comments to the story at kgw.com. We're going to finish the story next. Okay, so this has been a thing. And it's time again for some more of your weird holiday decor. Caroline sent in this video of a doll. See it there on the top of her tree? She wrote, "This is my tree topper. Her name is Rosalind. I think she's beautiful." That's a very nice thing to say. Beautiful but creepy, though. Check that thing out. We love to see it, though. Keep sending your weird and creepy holiday decor to the story at kgw.com. And also pick up your phone, follow us on Twitter at @TheStoryKGW. I'm Tim Gordon. That's the end of the story. The news at 6:30 is next.
This is KGW News at 6:30.
There are now confirmed Omicron cases in all 50 states and D.C. This is what health experts expected. The first reported case was in San Francisco on December 1st.